Okay, so we talked about transforming random variables in the last video, and we said that when you transformed them, you could add a constant to measures of center. In other words, the mean and median, and it'll change. You do not add constants to measures of spread. We also said that if you multiplied by a constant, everything changed by that multiple except for variance, which was the constant squared. I recommend you go back and make to that video and make sure you know those rules. Well, what happens if we add or subtract random variables? What happens to the measures of center? Well, when we add means, it's very simple. They can be added or subtracted directly, all right? No conditions apply, okay? And also, if we combine two normal distributions, the result is in right? You might want to put a star by that for future use. But in other words, if we combine two random variables, we can add their means together, piece of cake. However, there's some limitations with combining variances. First, we can only combine variances. We can't combine standard deviations directly. In other words, if we want to combine a standard deviation, we have to convert it to a variance. The other thing is, to combine variance, the variables must be independent. And that means the question's gonna need to tell you that they're independent, okay? Finally, we can only add the variance. If they tell us to subtract it, we're still going to add it, okay? We only add variances, we do not subtract them, okay? And like I said just a moment ago, if we wish to combine standard deviations, we must do the following. You have to convert it to a variance, then sum it, and then come back and take the square root of it. So, given independent random variables, and so they're told us they're independent, so we can combine them with means and standard deviations as shown below, find the mean and the standard deviation of each of these variables. Well, this is like 3x. This is just multiplying by a constant. Well, that's good because I can multiply by a constant all day long. That's just basically the same rules that we applied earlier on transforming in the previous video. So we have 3x. So that's going to be 3 times 10. That's 30, no problem. Standard deviation, we can multiply standard deviation. 3 times 2 equals 6. Piece of cake. This is adding a constant. And I should be saying to myself, wait a second, I have to be careful when it comes to adding constants. All right, I can add constants to measures of center. So they want y plus 6. So that's just the 20. And I can add 6, and my new mean is 26. That's no problem. But when I have my standard deviation, well, 5 plus 6, but we can't add the constant, so it just stays the way it was. And remember when we said that was true for the range, all right, nothing changed. All right, so let's try combining two random variables. So we have a mean of 10 and 20, and we can add those directly, and we get 30. The problem is when we get to standard deviation, I have to convert it to a variance by squaring it. So 2 squared plus 5 squared equals 29, and I wanted to keep it as a standard deviation. So basically I just said, you know what, 2 squared plus 5 squared equals 29, but that's variance. That's the variance of x plus y. And so to take the square root of it gives me the standard deviation. All right, we can subtract means. So 10 minus 20 gives me a negative 10. But notice these are exactly the same. I can only square them and sum them. Even though it told me to subtract, even though this says subtract, we don't. And you're going, well, why? Think about this. Think about me having two distributions. One distribution that had a mean of 10, another distribution with a mean of 20. Well, here's the spread of this one, and here's the spread of that one. When I subtract, yes, my mean shift, but now my data is combined together. So my data has all this spread right here and all this spread. So my spread increased, and that's why we sum. What if I wanted to add x plus x? Now I said x1 plus x1. Well, I can add those directly, and that's 20. But I have to be really careful because I know some of you are going to want to go x plus x equals 2x and 2 times that. That's not the same thing. We're adding random variable x multiple times. So that's 2 squared plus 2 squared because we have to convert it to a variance, and that gives me 4. I'm going to skip over f because I don't believe it's that important. And we're going to look at the last one, 2y plus 20. Put a star by this because this is the type of question they like to make multiple choice questions out of. So 2 times 20 plus 20, because I can multiply, that's not a problem, and I can add a constant, and that gives me 60. 2, and then I go 2 plus 5, 2, I'm sorry, that 2 times 5 plus 20. And you're like, wait a second, we can't add a constant. So this is just 2 times 5, which is the 10. All right. Please note, can't add constants. I can multiply. So this is really a transforming equation. This one really is transforming, where we sat there and go, you know what? We're going to multiply by a constant and we're going to add a constant. Well, I can multiply and add constants to center, but I can only multiply by constants. I can't add constants to measures as well. All right, that concludes this video.